Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me in another episode of Wise Women Dialogues. On full disclosure and Ascension, I'm Maria Christina Owl, and I have my organization, Sacred Future. We are hosting these dialogues on YouTube. Thank you for being with us on our channel and for supporting light leadership on the earth, for embodying it in yourself. Today, I want to introduce to you my precious colleague, sister, high priestess, ally, and starseed, whatever, everything you can imagine, how we're connected we are in the multi-dimensions. So Dr. Melissa Sophia Joy, welcome, beautiful.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So delighted to be here with you, my dear sister.
Yay. I'm going to read from your website a little bit about you for our viewers. So Melissa is a naturopathic doctor, graduated in 2000, and she went on to pursue energy medicine in depth, even more so than she already was. As well, she got her master's certificate in intuition medicine. She is a medical intuitive since 2003 and has been teaching in that field academically since very close to 2003, maybe a few years after that she started teaching it. As well, recently she founded and anchored in a beautiful new modality based on her decades of embodied wisdom in healing work called Somatic Awakening. And my experience of Melissa is more so as a ritual leader and a ceremonial leader. We have taught together, you know, in the past at New College, California, et cetera, but what I most know of you is being my soul family and doing deep ritual work, doing deep oracle work. You and myself and Marguerite Rigoglioso did a few events called the Three Oracles, where we went into a state of channeling and transmitted messages to our communities right when the fires, the first year of the fires, which was quite a service to our community in the midst of quite a crisis. And I know that you have also been bringing through the Divine Mother, Magdalene, which is a huge initiation path for you, the Magdalene Order of the Rose, and you have been bringing through transmission since this viral pandemic began. So where I would love to start with you, Melissa, is to just have you tell us more about your journey. This is what I love asking all of the special guests, special sister guests here. You are a very wise woman. You hold many, many clients. You hold many groups. You hold space in such an impeccable way.
Thank you.
What brought you here? And have you been preparing for this time your whole life?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have been preparing my whole life. I remember as a child having visions and dreams, recurring dreams that would lead me into there's something going on more with this world. You know, I grew up in the South, definitely in the Bible Belt, and the dreams and the visions would definitely go up against what I was being taught, both in school and especially at church. And then when I got to be older, I started realizing, especially in college, that what I was being told, how society was showing itself to me, I knew on some deep level that I was being fed a program, lies, whatever you want to call it. I just knew that there was more than this very limited perspective that I was being given. And then I think I was 20 and I actually worked a summer at Greenpeace. At that point, I knew that I very much loved the earth. I had a sense of what was going on environmentally. And that summer, I really hit the wall, so to speak, because I started really understanding exactly how bad. It really was. And I became very depressed. And I realized by the end of that summer that I needed to do something else, because I was hitting up against this all the environmental degradation that was happening, with this rage and this anger and this wanting to fight up against it. And then from there, I got really depressed and realized, I have to work on me. I have to work on myself first, because I knew that if I evolved consciously, that then I could be a beacon for the world. I could be a beacon of energy for the world to help us all evolve, because that's really what it came down to. I realized that I couldn't just be angry and fight the system. That wasn't going to work. So I threw myself into an evolutionary path, which lasted for decades and decades and decades, and became a naturopathic doctor by a vision that was telling me I was a modern day medicine woman. I didn't even know exactly what that meant, but I knew that naturopathic medicine was part of that. And then from there, I kept on evolving and evolving. And then I graduated and met you in 2001, maybe, something like that. And I kept on evolving. As you said, I did go to a school that helped me evolve in terms of the energy medicine. But the biggest things that I think really, really affected me is that there was a period in time where I shifted from being a naturopathic doctor, where I directed a program called Consciousness, Healing, and Ecology at New College of California. And really at that point started going deeply into the question of what is consciousness and how can it actually evolve the world. And, we taught there together for, I think, 4 years, and was totally affected by a lot of the things that we're teaching, whether it be the new physics, spiritual activism. We would take our students on these deep journeys, Vision Quest and other deep journeys. And then at that time, at the end of the 5-year period, New College closed. I happened to, 2 weeks before it closed, my ex-husband and I decided to divorce. And then financially, everything hit the wall. This was around 2008. Everything crashed. It just kept on crashing. 1 month it was this, 2 months later it was this, 2 months later it was that, over about a 1.5 year period. And then I was thrown into a dark night of the soul, which lasted total almost about a decade. Yeah. And during that period, there was the physical dissolving. Then there was all of the layers of the memories of past lives that were coming back, that I was healing and healing and healing and healing. And I got to this place where I realized that no matter how much I was working with other people, in the sense of, typical therapy or doing other modalities, it would help, but it wouldn't really help me shift what I was feeling on the inside. And that's when I turned to the divine and said, I need your help. And I started having visions of Jesus and Mary Magdalene coming and helping me. Mary Magdalene was one of the biggest teachers, and still is, ever. But during this time, she was with me literally on a day-to-day basis for several weeks and sometimes several months at a time, and literally taught me about Somatic Awakening, which is, in essence, how to utilize our higher self, specifically our higher self-witness consciousness and other aspects of our higher self, to actually bring that into the somatic body and to alchemically dissolve our trauma, alchemically dissolve the contractions of our being. And as we do that, then we can embody our higher self. So this modality has deeply healed my being and has completely changed my life. And now I have been practicing it for probably about 6 years, 7 years in my practice. And I am now teaching it a great deal in person and online. Beautiful. So here I am.
Beautiful, beautiful. Oh my gosh. And while you've been speaking, this gecko friend has joined.
That's beautiful. Hello, Mr. Gecko.
I think she's really into my tea.
That's good.
She's looking at me while you're talking. She's like cocking her head. You know what we're talking about.
She has something to share.
Yeah. So could you add into your description, sharing of your life, how you became so wise? And this is something that we share together, that I want to say it almost, and this is what I love about our friendship, sisterhood. We have so many parallel awakenings. And can you tell us more about your connection with the what you call the Arcturians and um, and the off-planet consciousness in the higher densities? How did that begin for you? Because and I'll just preface this with saying, or back up and just say, a lot of light workers and people on spiritual paths, it's easier to really connect with the nature spirits, the fairies, you know, and the realms of nature beings and nature consciousness. It's easy to connect with that. It's easy to connect with even like archetypes and consciousness from spiritual traditions that are walked the earth before us, right? It's a leap, and not many people have actually done it, to embrace and begin to relate with, in a personal, intimate way, the high density beings, those who ascended, and are actually engaging with the earth from their planets. Like they're the intelligent life in our universe, in our galaxy, that is in relationship with our earth, protecting our earth. How did you first come into contact with these allies?
Well, first, what happened is that I read this incredible book called the Arcturion Anthology, and it's a channeled book. And in this book, part of what's transmitted is that they give a meditation on how to connect in to higher dimensional helpers. And I took that and ran with it. It's like I read it and I got tingles all throughout my body, and I knew that I needed to connect in. And what happened is that in connecting into this specific type of meditation, that's when not only the ascended masters started coming in really, really strongly, but also the Arcturians started coming in really, really strongly. And I remember even before then, I remember hearing the word Arcturian and lighting up, and I didn't even know what it was. I think I remember talking to your husband Dwayne about this. He mentioned the word Arcturian. I'm like, what do you know about the Arcturians? Tell me about the Arcturians. And I just intuitively knew like something. So what happened is that over time, I created a relationship with these beings. And the primary energetic dynamic that I received from them was love, and this unconditional love that's like a family that has been watching over me, right? Like it's beyond what I can even articulate, because it's beyond human love, right? They're working in a fifth dimensional and higher perspective. And so I was inundated, and I had no idea exactly what the story was or how it's connected, you know, that, and that's how we work as intuitives, right? We get these downloads and our mind has no idea of what we're talking about, or any, like, what? I don't understand that at all. And that's okay, because our spirits understand it, right? And so that's what was happening for a long time with Arcturians. And then it was probably about 2.5 years ago. It was during my birthday. I was in Mount Shasta. I was on a personal retreat. And I received a gift. I was at a sacred site. I received a gift from a guide, Arcturian guide. And they said, I've been holding this for you for 1,000 years.
Wow.
For thousands of years. I want to give this to you. And I was like, what is it? And I received this gift, and it was like this energetic, it was like a huge seed of information that was then pushed or taken into my third chakra. And all of a sudden I knew, as I connected into this, I knew what it was like to live in 5D reality. And at that point I had some awakening experiences, and of course with most of us with awakening experiences, what happens is that we go into an awakening field, we stay there for a few days, a few weeks, sometimes a few months, and then we come back, right? And then we come into balance. But what happened with this information is that it was this understanding as to what it was like to actually live in a community with a family, as a society, in a 5D reality. I understood that. I got that. I grokked that. I also understood how consciousness can be utilized in the sense of not only evolution, but how it can be utilized in the sense of how we utilize energy, how we utilize data. Like right now we have our computers, and from Arcturian perspective is very, very, very different. As well as I realized my history as an Arcturian and why I came here. I've been here for a long time. We could say I'm a starseed. Usually starseeds are like the volunteers that are coming into 21st century. No, no, no. I've been here for a long time, and finally have remembered my place where I arose, my family, my star family, so to speak. And so I feel very connected. And so when I connect into the higher dimensional helpers, the Palladians can come in, the Syrians can come in, but usually it's the Arcturians who are leading the way because I'm so connected in.
Wow. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And so now, for me too, I think the Arcturians came in for me the moment that I read a channeled, I don't even know if you could say channeled, but a transmission from a man. I don't even remember where I read it, but I connected in with this man who was working with the Arcturians, and he said, here's a transmission from our Arcturian allies. They have a medical ship orbiting Saturn or something, or orbiting like out by Saturn. But they're in service to this time. And this, I saw that, 4 years ago, that transmission. And I'm like, there's a ship out by Saturn. So I got excited. And at that point, I had been really just channeling the Great Mother, the Divine Feminine and the Ascended Masters, the emanations of the Great Mother through the Ascended Masters. And so when I learned that, I just like bing, I have to explore this. If he is picking this up, if he's in dialogue with them, I would like to see if I could also connect with them and have a connection. So I opened up that connection, connected to the medical ship. The next thing I know, I'm in a client session, and I go into the state of trance to channel. And the next thing I know, the Arcturians are there, and there's very scientific, the medical ship, they're very scientific, and they worked with her. They described this process. They were doing this healing work with her through what they called a holographic chamber. And they described what it was, how it worked, and all these things. I'd never heard of anything like this before. I had no concept of what they were talking of personally, but they described all these different advanced kind of consciousness and consciousness technology as well as physical technology. And yet they were working on her, etheric and astral bodies to then be translated to her physical body. So after that, years later, I find out that there's actually these med beds out there that use a hologram, project a hologram of the body above where you're lying down and show your internal organs and show everything.
Wow.
And then it begins from the toes to the head, or however direction it goes. It literally recalibrates your whole harmonic, your whole body, brings everything back into the right resonance. There are actually, I heard that there are 10 of these on Earth. There's like 2 in Canada. It's like $10,000 a session. And you have to see therapists after you go through because you're completely healed. Your whole body is healed, no matter what ailment you had, structural, tissue oriented, muscle oriented. I mean, it's amazing that this technology is here on the planet, and brought to us, shared with us from our extraterrestrial allies, and yet not for the people. Not for the people.
Well, it's so interesting because, you know, I've experienced one of those holographic chambers in my visions, you know, or my astral experiences. I've been taken to one of those holographic beds, especially whenever I remember I was in a really, really, really deep state of trauma, from some past life experience, and I was put in one of those beds, but I had no idea that they actually existed on planet Earth. I think that's amazing. And you know, there's so many different people that we've heard of that have had these experiences, whether they be visionary experiences or they've had near death experiences, and then they come back and they have all of this information in regard to healing processes or other things, but I didn't know that those existed. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
And
it is amazing.
And it's too bad that it's not really, that there's not more of them. You know, I think it kind of reminds me of free energy, right? I mean, free energy, my sense of it is, you know, Nikola Tesla discovered it back in, I forget exactly, you know, the dates, 1920s, 1930s, something like that. And my question is, I wonder where it came from. Did it come from a download in terms of his creativity or what not? And then we have all these people that have actually taken that data and created these machines, but then unfortunately they're confiscated by the FBI
Right.
or the CIA.
That's right. There's so much advanced technology on the planet that could be, I mean, it's kind of outrageous when you think of what people are suffering with today, and that all of this advanced technology has been suppressed for 100+ years or more, you know, and we have this technology. Cancer could be eliminated from the earth in a day, you know, just through pulsing of resonance from satellites onto the earth, a certain frequency. And so let's talk about we had talked before we started recording, we talked about, you know, some of the things happening right now. There's a new documentary out that people can access for free. I don't know who the director is, but Michael Moore is like the writer, the narrator.
Oh, The Planet of Humans. The director is Jeff Gibbs.
Okay. And so we were talking about the different timelines, right? How we can plug into different timelines, so to speak, or different pockets of reality. I'm getting mosquitoes. So excuse me. That's the way it is out here. And you were comparing it to Thrive. And then also I wanted to bring in Stephen Greer's Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind documentary has come out. And then Out of Shadows. All these
right.
big truth-telling, whistleblowing documentaries, and they all have like a different lens or angle or invitation to plug into that line. Some feel a little higher frequency than others, or let's just explore these choices that people are facing right now with what timeline are we going to plug into around the future of humanity and our earth, and how powerful are we to influence the timeline?
You know, I think that's an incredibly important question because there's a disclosure of so much information right now. You know, I just did a podcast, and one of the things I said on it is that I've never since I've been alive in my 50 some odd years, I've never experienced such a huge, massive level of disclosure of information on so many levels. And these documentaries are just part of it. They're, you know, they're not the grand scheme of everything that's being disclosed. So, you know, one of the things I was saying to you, Maria, before we began, is that this movie, The Planet of Humans, on one degree, it actually gives you some understanding, some deeper understanding about the environmental movement and actually how it's been taken over by big money, which is very disturbing because I've been an environmentalist for, since I heard of the word environmentalism, like that's me, right? Back in my teens. And, when Barack, this is the essence of the, what I'll say is what I took away from that movie. When Barack Obama came into power as president, there was a huge amount of money put into wind and solar and other, quote unquote, other forms of sustainable energy. So they put all this money into wind and solar. And what they found is that they didn't get as much sustainability out of the energy as could be, because we don't always have wind, we don't always have solar. But what ended up happening is that all of these billionaires came in and started putting money into biomass fuel source. So basically what that means is that they have all these fuel plants now that are burning these trees, that are even basically burning anything that can burn, including garbage. There was one plant on there that they were burning tires, they were burning railroad tracks that were laced with PCP. This is not sustainable at all. And so you get to really see how a lot of these environmental activists, even organizations such as Sierra Club, Bill McKibben, even Al Gore, actually have been bought out. And where our primary, sustainable source of energy now is these biomass fuel plants, which is not environmental at all. The unfortunate thing is that Jeff Gibbs then actually doesn't give us any other options, doesn't talk about free energy, doesn't talk about anything else. And the question is, when are we going to be extinct, right?
Oh my goodness.
So it's a very dark perspective. It reminds me of some of the activists that I was around in New College, and it's just a very, very dark perspective. That's not the timeline that I choose, right?
Right. It reminds me of James Lovelock, who wrote Gaia Theory, and how apocalyptic he was getting recently. I remember 5 years ago or so that he was coming out saying we're in our, humanity's going extinct and there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
Exactly. So, and I can understand if you live in third density and your ego has run the show and you've really been exploring third density, the full human experience, the whole spectrum of emotions, and love, and the love for the earth, and fighting for truth. We have been in such a repressed and oppressed power over paradigm exploration recently. And I can understand how, if you look at it from that lens, it's hard to see perhaps another way. Those of us who are aware of the multi-dimensions, who have lived a lot of our life with perception of multi-dimensions, and it's normal for us to astral travel, to collaborate with spirits and the ancestors and talk to nature, and we're getting a different message, and we have been getting a different message for a long time. I know that Dwayne and I have been guided in our preparations over the last 8 years that we've been together, and guided in our preparations, that the big transmutations happening. We are at this time of ascension, as some call it. You could call it harvest if you work with the law of one books and the raw material, and this is an inevitable part of the cycle. 76,000 years. We are at the close of this. Some will continue on to explore third density on another third density planet. and perhaps they need to keep exploring this fear of extinction, and taking that to whatever degree they want. Yet the earth has already moved into fourth density, and those who want to go with her can, and that is an ascension moment for those of us who choose that. And that means we go into the new earth, the new age, a rebirth, where we aren't split anymore in our consciousness. We're out of dual consciousness. We aren't in that egoic split anymore. That's not in fourth density. We don't have these, there's no war. There's no civil war. There's no prejudice. There's none of that is in fourth density. And so it's just like this opportunity to notice the different storylines happening right now. And I know a lot of fear can be triggered from these apocalyptic. Do you think that there is, when we look at these apocalyptic storylines, what is the payoff for feeding those and nurturing? Like, if we look at the ego, the psyche, collective humanity, why would collective humanity feed that storyline? What's the payoff? What do we get from that?
That's a really big question. My sense of it is that we can look at this from two different perspectives, but they're really all the same perspective. There's the perspective of the egoic structure, the third dimension, this is what we're used to. And then there's the perspective of, oh, well, this is part of the programming that we've been put through, right? So I'll just talk about the third perspective, the third dimensional perspective, because this is what I teach. This is how I know the world, right? And so when we have any type of trauma, let's say, for instance, we had trauma as a child, a specific type of trauma as a child. I'll just use the example that I use in my book, my ebook. There is a boy who has his mother leave because of her own abuse and trauma and dysfunction. Then he actually makes it about himself. Then what happens is that instead of healing from it, because he doesn't have the support to heal from it as a child, he makes a story about his mother was untrustworthy, and then all women are untrustworthy. We could also have that story be something like, we were traumatized, back in the 80s when we all thought we were going to die from the nuclear bomb, right?
Right.
We can fill in lots of different storylines along that. But the bottom line is that anytime we have a trauma, then we have a contraction inside of us that is usually has a story connected to that. Like, for instance, the little boy is, I can't trust women, or it could be on an apocalyptic level. We're all going to die. There's nothing that we can do to save the earth, right? That apocalyptic perspective. And what happens is that these thought forms will just keep on repeating over and over and over and over again until we actually have the ability to say no more. And oftentimes that means that we need to get on our knees. In other words, our life needs to be turned upside down in order for us to have the motivation, for many people, to say, okay, I'm finally willing to look deeper at, from the apocalyptic level, at other options, or from our ego level of, I'm not good enough, or I can't trust women, or I can't trust men, or whatever it is, right? We need to look at that and actually to heal that. And that's a lot of the work that I do with bringing in the higher self witness consciousness to stabilize. In essence, what Somatic Awakening does is that it stabilizes, it heals the third D stories that we're telling ourselves, whether it be connected to apocalypse or something else, so that then those stories dissolve and then we can step into another way of being. In terms of the movie that I saw this week, The Planet of the Humans, right, for me, what I did is I did a lot of healing. I'm like, okay, what's inside of it for me? Because I did get triggered. And then I also on the icing on the cake, I went back and I watched the movie Thrive, which talks about free energy, and it talks about, you know, we're not at a dead end. There's so many different ways that we can evolve here, right? So it was a both and perspective, but we also have to both do our work as well as keep an open mind as to what else is possible. And part of that is that we don't know where we are right now from humanity's perspective. We don't really know what is possible. We really, really, really don't know. We have an idea. We have some things that we can put together here. We have this piece of free energy with Nikola Tesla and all the different things that have happened and all the different things that we can see from higher dimensional helpers actually coming in, whether it be from crop circles or other things that, you know, we're supported. There's so much information that we don't know. There's so much information from higher dimensional helpers that can actually, you know, take care of every single problem that we have on the planet right now, but we don't know about it because the powers that be, and for whatever reasons, which I don't know about, we don't have that communication open yet to the higher dimensional helpers. I mean, you and I have it, right? There are other oracles that have it, but most people don't have that line of communication. And there's so many different people that need to have that line of communication in order to be able to use their genius, because each one of us are these incredible creative beings. And whenever we connect into our soul purpose, and for one person that might be their genius in terms of creating this technical thing, for others, like you and I, it's about, okay, let's step out and be beacons of light to the world, right? And so each time we step further into our soul purpose, when we make these choices of healing, when we make these choices of saying, okay, I'm saying yes to a higher dimensionality, I'm saying yes to a higher timeline. What do I need to do in order to do that? I'm willing to do my healing work. I'm willing to be courageous and look at the deepest, darkest shadow, because I want to bring light there. So I think I answered your question plus more.
Plus more. Yeah. Yeah. And I really believe that, you know, part of Gaia's ascension experience is that there is so much more light. I mean, because it's, you know, it's like, we have our personal perspective, and then there's our planetary, it's like our personal evolutionary journey, the planet's evolutionary journey, our solar system's evolutionary journey, right? And so when we take it out to look at the sun, our solar star, the life-giving sun that every planet's orbiting around in our solar system, imagine, you know, if you think it's like, you know, from a personal perspective, we tend to be the center of our own universe and look at how everything is connected to us and what's happening to us. Mm-hmm. But when we broaden and we look like, oh no, we're all actually connected. We are what's happening with the sun. Like the sun is what's happening to us. I mean, the influence of our sun is profound, and the evolutionary journey of our sun impacts all of her children. It's interesting, when the higher density helpers come in, they call the sun in a feminine pronoun, her. And so here we have our sun going through a major expression, you know, an expanded expression that is flooding onto all the close, you know, the planets closest to her body. And we are having upgrades, flooding with this new quality and resonance of light, sunlight, you know, streaming onto our planet. If that's not going to pop people open into relating to, it's like, woo, oh, I have a higher self. It's like, oh my gosh, you know, like, I know that I've been kind of tracking, just for my own personal interest, more and more people beginning to channel, personal channeling in their meditations.
Yeah, you know, the solar flares have been such huge impact into our evolution, into awakening our DNA, into activating, whether we're consciously aware of it or not, but the God particle that is inside of us, the trillions and trillions of God particles that are inside of each atom, right? How that affects our energy system, how that affects our physiology, how that affects our emotional body and our ego structure. Like literally, we can't stay the same, even if people want to stay the same. And there are, definitely there are people that want to stay the same. But even for those people, it's going to be almost impossible to shift and evolve, because it's my intuitive sense is that we're at the beginning. We're at the beginning of this big shift. We could say that we're at the beginning of the old world, but I like to say we're at the beginning of the new earth. Just
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Eckhart Tolle's book, right? But now we're really in it. Like we can't deny it anymore. And this pandemic is just one swoop of energy, right? For a lot of people, it's a very, very intense energy, but we are shifting now. There's no way to go back. And our earth is telling us over and over and over again, just like, again, before we started, we were talking about, I live in Northern California, and, there's already conversation that the fire season is coming in a few months. What are we going to do? Right? I'm going to be moving soon. And, we're already having conversation like, well, let's make sure to see if we can not move somewhere we're going to be evacuated, as if we can do that. But, with higher dimensional help, maybe. But
Sure.
the bottom line is that we can't continue on as business as usual. We just can't. And my sense is that it's just going to get more and more and more louder. And either people can say, okay, the world is going to go crazy and we're all going to go extinct, or they can be in their fear and stay there and try to hold on to their power and their greed, just like the 1%. Or we can say, individually say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to evolve. Now, here's the question. How willing am I to do the work to evolve? Because evolution, it's a messy process. It's looking at every single one of our stories that keep us small. Every single one. And for a lot of people, whenever I first start working with them, they have these, big things that they're coming into my office to look at. Oftentimes they're connected on a physical level. Sometimes they're not. Big issues that they're working with, whether it be work or relationship or, some type of trauma in their childhood. But then as they start to heal and as they start to look at the whole landscape of their psyche, for those who are really committed to their evolution and become students, and we go deeper and deeper and deeper, usually at one point they say, oh my God, I had no idea how big the landscape is of my psyche that I have to heal. I'm like, you got it. That's it. And that's what we're being asked to transform. Every single belief that is limiting us, we're being asked to transform it out of 3D reality. We don't have to do it perfectly. We don't have to do it, on some quick timeline to force ourselves. But what we're really being asked to do is to evolve it so that then we're more and more free. Imagine like you're in this little box and you can't really breathe, right? That's typically what people are living in lower 3D reality. They have no idea what's really outside of them because they're in a box. But as the box opens and it cracks, opens more and more, you realize you're living in this spacious place, and anything is possible when you break out and when you're choosing this higher timeline.
Yeah, yeah. And I tend to think that, if you are here on the planet during this time of global transformation, that you chose to be here for a reason. This is a massive catalyst for soul evolution. One thing that came through in a transmission that Dwayne and I did a month ago was we were shown, or I was shown, that the souls who were coming to Earth from the spiritual realm choosing to come to Earth during this time, that they were the ones who really needed this huge catalyst were given priority to incarnate, because many had already crossed that threshold of into positive 100%, positive polarity. They are not needing, and this correlates identically to what the raw material was saying back when it was published in the 80s. The people being born at this time they need this time to help shift them into, not shift, whatever they choose, to make their choice, negative or positive, to explore into the next, cycle. So being at the end of a cycle, everybody is facing the choice. You're going to continue in third density with the split and with the tension and with the suffering and attachment and the ego. That's okay if that's where you're at. Or you're going to go into fourth density positive, or you're going to go into fourth density negative. And so the soul's coming in, it's like, we came because it is this time of massive catalyst. And, like you and I and many other, those viewing can relate to being called here, invited here by Gaia, reached out to and requested for our presence to support, like almost like holding the riverbanks solid so that the rush of the river can flow to the ocean in a directed way, without too much distraction and meandering off and getting lost. So at least that's one way I can describe how I feel my service is, my calling to be here at this time is.
I definitely agree. Absolutely. I first, I just want to say I'm so grateful to be here at this time on this planet. I made a choice a long time ago to utilize this energy to the maximum. Maybe it's because I have fire in my chart and in my moon and whatnot, my subconscious. But I'll say that I know from my own experience that when you make that choice, when you say, I no longer want to suffer and I'm going to do whatever I need, connecting with my higher self and the one God goddess energy, the ascended masters, the higher dimensional helpers, actually asking them for help and saying, you know what, I am going to do whatever I can do to heal, then this is the time. Like, this is the portal. There are so many, actually there are many portals that we're constantly walking through. If you're connected to astrology at all, it's like, every other month it seems like some big thing that we're walking through. And if you're aligned and attuned, you can really feel it, including the solar flares that are happening. And I was also given a similar download regarding what we're being asked to do, regarding who's here. The download that I was given by Divine Mother was this huge web of light, like all of the people who are saying yes. Every time we say yes and we go through some level of evolution, we get brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And those of us who've said yes thousands of times and said, I don't care how deep and dark it gets, however many past lives I have to do, however, do I need to go back thousands of years? Okay, I'll do it because I'm here to heal. I want to be free, right? Those of us who have done, a great deal of work, then we become nodes. I saw us as nodes. And I say us for you and I and every single person who's doing this level of work. If you just keep on doing it more and more, you're going to become a node of light. And a node of light actually grounds this light network into the world. And every time you say yes, whether you're a big node or you're a small node or wherever you are going to make waves of or actually I'll say allow waves of light to flow through community, whether people are from their own free will choosing to say yes or not, they're going to be affected by that. I know, for instance, like my family has been so affected by the work that I do, and I rarely talk about it, at least to some of my family. Anyway, I am from the South, but I know that they have been affected.
Right.
Right. I know my community has been affected. I know my patients have been affected, even if it's a patients that aren't really, open to this deeper work. Right. They still are being affected because I'm showing up in my light. I'm showing up and guiding them to wherever they're ready to go. And that might be a small step. Like, what do you think about meditating for 20 minutes a day? Whatever that step is for them. Right. And so I think the bottom line is that in this whole process, we are being invited in more. That's what we're going, and we'll continue to go through these processes. We're being invited in more. Now how much? Because in the bottom line, the divine honors our free will. We will never be forced to do anything. And that's the beauty of one of the beauties of this reality, is that we'll never be forced. It can create a lot of chaos because free will run amok. I mean, this is what's going on right now with the 1%. But at the bottom line, it's up to us. So what's your choice? What's your choice? We all have a choice. And how deep do you want to go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is true. And everybody knows that for themselves. I know that when I was in my 20s, I was opening up to, energy medicine, healing, the esoteric and the occult, just kind of learning different traditions and ceremony and ritual, a lot of earth-based stuff. And I had a friend a dear friend, who was very advanced in consciousness for his age. And he would come with, having spent days and days researching JFK and, because this is before 9/11, he would come in with all of this research and all of this investigation about the global elite. And I mean, he knew what the cabal was back in the 90s. He was tracking all of that. He was trying to help people learn more about what was really going on. And he would begin talking, and I could follow him for a little bit, and then I would just glaze over. I get irritable, not want to hear it, and wish he changed the subject, and just like, oh my gosh, this whole conspiracy theory monologues feel like I'm not even here. He just starts talking and everybody else disappears, and and I kind of, so looking back, it's interesting to see my capacity for the truth when I was a student at New College was a huge leap into waking up more. And I knew it. It was fun. It was really interesting. Like I enrolled to complete my bachelor's degree, in 99 or whatever. And I was like, okay, I'm going to dive in, and this is going to be my world for a whole year. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to get into, I was not into politics at all before that. I was into the environmental movement as far as like, studying marine biology and sciences, but so this was that really popped me open even more. I had more of a capacity to hear the truth, to digest it without getting, congested and constipated with the information, and fearful, too flooded. It flooded my nervous system with concern and fear, because and many people may be able to relate to this, my default mode was as a savior. And so when I received a lot of information, this is what's happening in the Amazon, this is what's happening with the cetaceans of the planet, this is what's happening. Have you ever heard of the HARP facility? and the weather manipulation. And I take all of that in, and it would get so stimulating that my inner savior, that was my default mode, would fry out because I couldn't dedicate enough of myself to each of the issues to my own satisfaction, that I would feel like I was actually helping. And so I'd have to shut down and just like, okay, well, I'm doing my thing in my own way, and I know there are people out there doing good work, and I didn't know I could do global light work and just go into meditation and love the earth, you know. Anyway, and so as the decades passed, more and more and more capacity to perceive reality clearly, to be willing to know the truth. And the more I would pray, like, okay, I'm ready for the next level of truth, or, you know, Great Mother, Divine Father, make me stronger so I can be ready for the truth. And exactly what you were talking about before, Melissa, every time I had that prayer, I would be brought into more of my own shadow work. You want to know the truth? Okay, Inanna. Okay, Persephone. Deep dive, go into the underworld, do your vision quest work, go in, because that's where you need to face it. And then you'll be able to hold how it is manifesting in the external world, in this hologram here, you know. And now I feel like I'm like my friend from the 90s, you know, and I go to my mom, or I go to, you know, it's just like, did you know, did you know, did you know, did you, you know, vaccines? And it's like, and I'm watching the levels of being able to receive the information, and I'm being very sensitive, and just like, I've gotten to the place where I'm okay with wherever everybody is at, you know. It's like, even I'm still unable to receive something, you know. It's like we're all at our perfect place, because it, wherever we're at, it totally correlates to our own, what we are facing in ourselves, what we're working through in ourselves. Our capacity here is our capacity to know here, because they're completely connected.
You know, I really appreciate you bringing that back to the savior perspective, similar to the savior, victim, victimizer, or perpetrator triangle. The bottom line of all of that, you're exactly right, is our ego. So how is our ego, our little small self, going to respond when we hear things like from the planet of humans, or if you've seen Out of Shadows? Like, it's a hard movie to digest, right? And it's kind of a lower vibrational, lower timeline, the people who are sharing this information. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily wrong. Some of it, you know, we all get to take it in on whatever level is true for us. But the bottom line is that, you know, you really hit the nail on the head in the sense of, where are you at with your own level of shadow work? You know, that was another thing that I talked about on the podcast I just recently had, where it was, you know, we can't ignore what's happening in the world. We, just like we can't ignore our shadow, and how much we have processed our shadow is going to allow us to actually hold what's actually happening in the world from a larger perspective, or we could even say a non-dual perspective. Now, it gets really, really tricky, because we can say a non-dual perspective and say, oh, everything is love and light. I'm just going to do a big spiritual bypass here, and, you know, just say, oh, I'm going to bless it all with love, and I'm just going to be over here in my corner and not really look. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actually doing enough work inside of us so that we are so grounded in to that light, to that node that we are, so that we can say, yes, that too. And if I can't individually hold it, then Divine Mother, come in and help me know what I need to do so that I can hold it. So I can allow myself to know what's happening in the world, to do whatever I need to do to align with my soul purpose and still be at peace and presence, relax in my being. You know, that's not always going to be happening whenever we hear of these horrific things that are going on in the world. You know, oftentimes what will happen is that we'll hear of something and then, you know, we'll spin out. Like I know after I saw Out of Shadows, I was like, whoa. And I knew a lot of that information already because a lot of my patients from the past had actually walked through a lot of what he was talking about, and I had to help them, you know, over years. But even then, hearing it again on that level, it spun me out, and it took me a while to come back and meditate enough, to pray enough, to come back and go, okay, here I am. This too, God, this too, Goddess, this too, Divine Mother, this too. Help me take this too.
Yeah.
Just to be with it. You know, we don't necessarily have to hold it. We can if we're called and we have the alignment to do that, but just allow it to be, because the shadow exists in our world and we're starting to see more and more and more of our shadow. We can't ignore it. But how do we be in balance with it? How do we actually work with it? You know, a lot of times what I've heard from people who've seen movies such as this is, what do I do? How do I hold this? You know, and my answer is just that. What do you need to do inside of yourself to actually come to a place where you can hold it? You know, and if there's something that you're being asked to do from a soul level, then go do that. You know, maybe, you know, some people might feel called to volunteer for, you know, people who are surviving these incredible, horrific sexual abuse, or other people that want to volunteer and do that, or whatever it is, right? So,
Yeah.
but the bottom line is that the first thing is just to allow ourselves to face whatever fear, whatever outrage, whatever frustration, whatever is inside of us, face that first, and then ask the question, is there something that I need to do beyond praying for the world, beyond holding it in that way?
I love that, especially because then we're really responding in present time, in our own presence, as you said, and are grounded from a grounded place. And I know that there can be a knee-jerk savior response to a lot of the crisis, or, you know, an information that we hear that may not be our highest way to serve. But because we are in a fight or flight state, we're panicked, or, you know, or feeling like I have to do something, and then we start throwing our energy out into like the horizontal, out horizontally, in that savior mode, and it may end up depleting you and spiraling you even more into despair, rather than giving you a sense that you are contributing and serving, you know, in a way that lifts you too.
Exactly. And I think one of the biggest points that I want to make here is that keep in mind that when you hear these stories, that oftentimes what happens even before that, you know, the knee jerk reflex of like, oh, I have to save, but what's actually happening is that our own trauma is getting activated inside of us. And this trauma could be very repressed. It could be something from your familial heritage, right, that you inherited, or it could be something from your past lives. Maybe, you know, you have been a sex slave, you know, 5 lifetimes ago, or you have been put through, you know, experimentation, you know, 6 lifetimes ago from some crazy, whatever it is, right, whatever it is. But the bottom line is that when we actually give ourselves the opportunity to actually ask the question, what is really happening for me right now? Why am I feeling so off? Why am I feeling so victimized by this? Why do I feel like I have no energy? We start asking those questions and doing processes so that we can heal. Then we are more at cause. Then we have the ability to say, okay, I'm present. I got this inside of me. Now what? Now what, spirit? Now what, higher self?
Exactly. Oh my gosh, there's so many more areas we could discuss, Melissa. I honestly, I'm like, we're just getting started. Yes. So we are having a roundtable soon. We have Maren Bach-Antonsen and Chris, and
Laura Eisenberg.
Laura
Eisenhower,
Yeah,
sorry. Yes.
will be joining us. Yeah, the four of us are going to have a roundtable that will be posting probably in a week or so. And we're going to take where we've just ended. We're going to keep going with this and dive a little deeper. I know that one of the topics that is alive for a lot of light workers as we anchor into our own light, as we do get still and do our shadow work, and we open into even more of this expansive, vast place in ourself, more resourced in our own soul light, the oversoul presence and collective light. And I love what you said, the network, the nodes that we are, millions and millions of us around the world. We connect in with that, and from that place of light, looking into and doing work with the presences on the current game board that are emanating just as much evil and negativity. And on the astral planes, there's a lot happening. There's a lot happening. And so we're going to take that conversation even further with our roundtable and look at evil, look at fear, and look at the tactics being used to trigger us into the trauma response, the fight or flight states, so that we are less capable to access our light during this time. And so that's going to be a really, really, I think, inspiring conversation, because all of us have done deep work, very deep work. And we have been working on the astral planes with the different, sorcerers, and through love and through commitment and through seeing the soul, seeing through the pain. And so I am grateful for you, Melissa, for all that you brought today.
Thank you.
And there's just so much here. I can see myself listening to this 3 times over to, because it's really like, I feel like what we're doing is stirring the pot and just planting seeds for contemplation and meditation. And how about you? Where do you experience these things? What are you investigating now? All of you who are viewing this, what is your next step, in truly knowing yourself, loving yourself, healing yourself, and becoming more whole? What does it feel like for you to contribute and serve humanity at this time in a way that does not deplete you, but actually is fulfilling and making you brighter and brighter and brighter? Because it is a very, very real, authentic way to serve. And so thank you for participating, everybody, in this incredible time of transformation on the planet. We're all together in this, and we are definitely stronger together. We get to keep reminding each other who we are, holding up the mirrors for each other. And, we really are part of this incredible moment in the evolutionary journey of humanity on Earth. So would you like to just close with a prayer or a blessing for us? And then if there's anything you'd like to share, any free gifts like on your website that people can resource for these times, or anything coming up that you'd like to share?
I'd be honored. So let's go ahead and close our eyes, take some nice deep breaths in and out. And first of all, just allow yourself to get present in your body. Just allowing your breath just to take you deeper into your core. Beloved oneness that is everywhere, that is love, that holds us in this container of love eternally. We give gratitude for this life. We give gratitude for this experience of this earth plane and all the richness of it, both the beauty and the love and the care, as well as those places which are in shadow that actually are teaching us, that are teaching us how to step up into our power, how to remember who we really are, how to live aligned to this higher timeline, and most significantly, this unconditional love that flows through us eternally. Thank you for remembering, helping us remember that we have everything that we need in order to remember that we are divine beings of this love, that we are unified with you, that all the strength, all the courage, all the power, all the healing, everything that we need is right here as we connect and reconnect to our higher self, to our spirit, to our soul, to the guides, the angelic guides, the ascended masters, the higher dimensional helpers around us of light, of love, that we are connected infinitely to the conduit of this love, this conduit of divinity. We now know this is so. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It is done.
Ashe.
Ashe. So I just want to say thank you, Maria, for inviting me here. I've so enjoyed my conversation with you. It feels very ease-filled. And I think part of that is because we've been friends for so long. And I also just want to tell people how to connect with me if you are interested in finding out more about my work. I have a website, and the website is www.somatic-awakening.com. You can download my free ebook when you go onto that site, which is the 5 Golden Keys of Healing, how to use somatic awakening in
So relevant right now
to your higher self. So definitely feel free to download that book. I have a whole section on free recordings under teaching. Also under teaching, I have a class, introduction to somatic awakening called Embody Healing and Freedom. That's getting ready to launch on May 13th. Because we are in this time of the pandemic, so many people are having financial issues. So you can activate that class and get it for half off for $99 using the coupon code Embody98. And if you are out of work and you can't even afford that, then don't worry about it. This class is free to all. Just email me and let me know your situation. We'll get you in, whatever you can pay. So
thank you.
I want to make it available.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. See, that's what this is about. That's what these times are about. I mean, just like, can we break free of all the old paradigm structures that kept us separated? And can we just be generous and be real? And
yes, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, you know, for us to break our heart open and to really see, like, this is what's going on with humanity. Yeah, we have to buy food and shelter and all that stuff. But the bottom line is, how can we be generous? How can we share it with the world? Because right now, we need as many gateways as possible going, okay, this is 3rd dimensionality. This is how you get to 4th dimensionality. And that's what I feel like my job is to be a light bearer and a way shower, to go, okay, this is how you get from here to here. If you're somatically based, you want to connect in with your higher self, this is how you do it. So here's the process. So as many people that wants to walk through that process as is possible, I want to make it available to them, and they can go as deep as they want to go.
and with you guys, with Melissa as your guide, You are in such good hands.
Thank you, beloved sister.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so grateful to be sharing this world with, with so many incredible people. I feel that with all of these beautiful feminine goddess mouthpieces on the planet, bringing through that feminine stream of wisdom to help balance so much linear and so much analytical processing going on. We need to have the voice of the mother here, and since 2012 it really has been. It's the mother is back, right?
Hallelujah.
Mother is back, and we are here to bring harmony. We are here to instigate and catalyze the harmony back to this planet. And you guys, the mother is back, right? The mother is back. And when the mother comes back, annihilation isn't the path. When the mother returns, rebirth and regeneration and healing and wholeness and harmony is the path, right? So here we are, the mother's back. Yes.
Yes.
So thank you everyone for joining us for this episode of Wise Women Dialogue, some full disclosure and ascension. And we are going to have more beautiful sisters coming to speak. Thank you. And as you know, you can always reach me at sacredfuture.org. Blessings and aloha.
Blessings.